Teddy Smith right here on WPAT, an MRBI radio station here in New York City. It's great to have Don Cummings here. He wrote a wonderful memoir, a wonderful book called Bent But Not Broken. And I read your book. It's a wonderful book, Don, and it's great to have you here on the show of shows.
Thanks for having me. This is the show of shows. I feel it in the air already.
You know the energy's here.
It is here.
And you know, the thing is that we haven't seen each other in about maybe almost 40 some years, and it's great to see you because it was just like yesterday when we were talking about some of the people that we knew from high school. By the way, folks, Don is an alum of Suffern High School, where I am also an alumni, and I graduated, I don't even know how many years ago. I don't even want to say the number of years, but nevertheless, it's great to have you here, Don, because it's we'll share some of our upbringing together here, because you do mention it in the book, and I'm glad that your book is quite a success, and you've been out there all over the country promoting it. I saw your great article in the New York Times. You got some great hits from there,
I was
right?
lucky. Jane Brody, she covered the book in the personal health section, so that was good.
So, what inspired you to write the book Bent But Not Broken, a memoir by Don Cummings? I know it has to do with a Peyronie condition, as opposed to what we discussed before, which is not.
You can call it Peyronie's disease. It's fine.
Yeah.
That's what people call it.
Okay,
That's okay.
but this goes back. How many years ago did you first find out that you had this condition?
Yeah, it was I guess about 8.5 years ago, and Peyronie's disease kind of grabs you for about 18 months to 2 years, and so there was about a couple-year period where I was dealing with it, both with discovering I had it and then getting treated.
What made you decide to write a book about your life with your partner, and also about a lot of other things that are going on in the book besides Peyronie, the Peyronie condition?
Okay, so I originally just wanted to help people. Frankly, I've written a lot of articles and plays and things, and what I wanted to do was just write a monograph, like a 40-page thing, to put on as an Amazon single, as a sort of public service announcement to help people read about how you take care of this. And I'm in a writing group. I still am in a writing group. They're in Brooklyn. I live in LA, but they're in Brooklyn, and we just Skype kind of thing. Actually, Google Hangout. And everyone said that the most interesting part was the stuff that affected me emotionally, and also how it affected my relationship sexually. And then I said, oh, damn, am I allowed to curse in this thing? Probably not.
Yeah, well,
damn's okay.
Damn's okay.
The easy ones.
The easy ones,
not the rough ones.
Too bad, yeah.
Not the rough ones. So I said, I don't know, now I have to write a whole book, because they're right. It was the most interesting part. It was the most compelling part. And then as far as talking about the past went, I feel like whenever you lose something,
you gain something.
Well, yeah, you do, but you also you sort of have to show what has been lost.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the book, it starts on 48, goes into when I'm about 51, and I'm like, okay, so what, middle-aged guy? Like, you're not a sexual dynamo, like, boo-hoo. But the truth is, when I was in my late teens, 20s, 30s, not only was I younger and more sexually active, but most people are kind of, not everyone, but you're kind of better looking, and you have more sex.
But you probably still have a great sex drive today.
Yeah, well, it's not like when I was 18, but yeah, I still, my sex drive is fully intact, and I guess my last physical, my testosterone level was average for my age, so that stuff's fine.
What did you enjoy most about writing the book?
I have to be honest, I'm one of these guys who really likes the first draft to be over with, so what I really like doing is making the book sound right. So that's what I like doing. I mean, whether I wrote about my penis or your penis or anyone else's penis in the room, whatever penises I'm writing about these days, no. I like the first draft. I like that it's free and easy, but I like making things right, So that was really my most enjoyable thing. As far as the parts that, I would say the clinical stuff was not my favorite.
Did you find it boring or tedious?
No, I just found that I had to get it right and get the information in there without it becoming boring and tedious. You know what I mean? So I had to be careful. So that became like a thing about technicality, but while keeping it very much alive. I would say the thing that was kind of most fun to write was the stuff from the past, because it actually didn't have such weight. So I could describe things and have a good time, and it just was less emotionally fraught, frankly.
I really like your cover, the cover of the book. People should see this.
Well, that I'm very lucky. So Chip Kidd, Chip Kidd did that cover. Chip Kidd is
They did a fabulous
yeah,
job.
he's the most kind of famous book jacket designer. He's done a lot of David Sedaris's books. He did the Jurassic Park book with the the dinosaur, and that dinosaur is in the poster for the movies, right? So he did that. He's a Knopf and Penguin. He's a great guy. In fact, I had dinner with him.
Is this sort of like what the penis looks like after when you're having a little problem?
Yeah, I
is
guess
this
that's
similar.
It's a little similar. I mean, my penis definitely bent a little bit to the right.
To the right.
To the right, and this one is bending, a little to the right. Yeah. So it works, and so I guess Chip did his homework when he read the book. He realized when it went. I would say though, it wasn't quite as bad. A little teeny bit less than that. But
And did you recognize some of the symptoms that you had? There were several that you had, did you have like a pain in your penis, or was it a pain behind the penis, or scrotum,
it was like no, not the scrotum at all. It was totally in the penis, and it was just below the head on the top, which is the most common place that guys get it. I was noticing that I had nighttime pain, because a lot of times at night guys get erections just because you're sleeping, you get erections. And it only really hurts during erection, it doesn't hurt otherwise. And I was noticing some pain at night, and I didn't know what was going on, and I thought, oh, maybe this is all right, maybe this is no big deal. I don't want to focus on something like that because it could easily just go away. And then within a few weeks, my penis started bending. And then once it started bending, I knew I had Peyronie's disease, because I actually knew what Peyronie's disease was.
And how did your partner, Adam, feel about you writing this book?
Yeah, I had to make sure he was okay with it. He likes honesty, so he was okay with it. I mean, I took out a couple of things about his first workplace, where he worked when I first met him, and also his current place of employment. He didn't want that in there, but I think which is fine. I mean, you could look him up and figure out who he is and figure, whatever. If you really needed to find out where he worked, you could. But that's not in the book. But he was, he was a little nervous about being depicted fully sexually. But it's not, the book's not pornography. I hope that I write about sex in a way that's adult and sobering, as opposed to, I certainly didn't write it to be titillating or something like that.
What would you like to share, first of all, that comes to your mind now about a chapter in your book that sort of either inspired you to write this particular chapter, or some people gave you some advice or some interest to go forward with a certain chapter? Anything that pops up into your mind now?
Yeah, I mean, I could just read the opening.
Yeah, why don't you read the opening?
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah, what I do too is, because I have this theater background, I tend to trim down a chapter way down to just the action. So that's more fun for radio, and everything else too. So chapter 1, the original sin: men are from penis. I thought it might go away on its own. I've been having painful nighttime erections for 6 weeks. There was a grabbing sensation and extra pressure just below the head on the right side of my penis. Sometimes the pain was mixed with more than the usual erectile pleasure because of the extra tightening, but only at half staff. First, I thought it was a good sign. My erections felt much stiffer than they had been our last few years in Los Angeles and our most recent year in New York City. I thought it could be possible that my midlife hormone levels are on the rise. That was early February. By March, my tube steak, which had always been sizzling straight during erections, bent to the right about 20 degrees just below the glands whenever I came to attention. When my erection was at full capacity, it hurt. It was a piercing pain, and I took pictures. My boyfriend of 16 years, Adam, and I had sex, but it was painful and difficult. It required contortions. One night early on, after he got home from work, I showed him one of the pictures. "Look at this," I said. "My penis is not getting any better. It hurts almost all the time now." He smiled, slightly supportively, somewhat derisively, as he always did when presented with any frailty, especially my frailties, which I made known at a moderate pace. Adam is blonde and wispy, and I am brown-haired and muscled. We are the same age, with midlife paunches. As for our worst personality traits, I am more volatile and he is more passive-aggressive. Neither one of us is entirely crazy. Our temperaments are nothing alike. If he's the bottom, I'm the top. I pushed the picture closer to his face. I use your hand cream. Ignore the greasy white stripes and look at that bend. Yeah, it's bent. Yeah, it's upsetting. It isn't getting any better. He patted me on the shoulder. I hate when you pat me. Don't pat me. This has been going on for years. Sorry. An older man with a reliable car who I briefly dated in college warned me years ago that affection and homosexuality were a tough mix. Adam does not like to face problems head on. I face every problem like it will never go away. I had a feeling I would be on my own to solve this, as Adam would not even give visitors from Europe directions into town from the airport. He always said, "You're smart, you'll figure it out." Really? I mean, all the way from Gothenburg and you give them nothing? I've always been drawn to distant men. My father was a thin, pale, shy child of a drunk who learned early to disappear. My mother was pregnant again a few days after I was born, so she was preoccupied with that and other things. I like people who don't care too much about me at first glance. I'm kind of used to it, but I also hate it. The sex with Adam had truly been great for the last few months, and this made us feel closer. As some wise Italians repeat, it is more important to have someone to hate than someone to love. And we had done our years of hatred, which had kept the spark alive. But my erectile display threw us a curve, and I grew anxious about abandonment. I had always used my penis as a connector. What if I lost this ability? If my penis were ceased to function, would I have regrets about how I had used it? Did I give Adam the best sex of his life? Did I give pleasure to enough other people along the way? Was my penis pressed into service too little? Was I being punished for having overused it? By the third week, the pain at night was getting much worse. It woke me up. The pleasure of the extra pressure was completely gone, leaving me with nothing but vice-grip pain. I had always had a fear of Peyronie's disease. I had slept with men with curved penises, and I had looked long ago into what could be the source. What is the cause of this? I began to Google like you do, but shouldn't when you need an answer to calm yourself down. Peyronie's disease is scar tissue, or plaque, made of naturally occurring fibrin that builds up in a disadvantageous location. It sandwiches between the outer layer of the two parallel dorsal erectile tubes, remembered to me in Tufts pre-medical college classes as the corpora cavernosa, and the outer reptilian plate-like coating called the tunica albuginea, something I never heard of before. Every site gave the same explanation of how Peyronie's disease gets you. When your erection tubes, these corpora cavernosa, fill up with blood and there is obstructing scar tissue in the outer tunica albuginea, your penis bends in that direction. The plaque can eventually calcify. A solidified, wretched boomerang was possibly what I had to look forward to. Fresh hell. Remain calm. You can do this. Don't drive your man crazy with fear. He's at work. Figure it out. He scares easily. Adam was more supportive than I had hoped for, but also self-protective and distant. Like he did not want to be associated with something so terrible. He was tender with me after I finished having sex with him. When I asked, "Was that okay? Did it feel okay? Is it really ugly?" He said, "It's fine. It's fine." In early sessions, Adam said he barely noticed it, but he was being nice and is a very untalented liar. When he glanced at one of my sideways curved erections, he got a look in his eye like someone who had just seen a two-headed mouse. I was getting more and more uptight and needed to fix this thing. I developed what felt like a bladder infection, that constant need to urinate, and a general burning sensation around the head of my penis, deep to my taint, right up into my anus, like a hot brick had been dumped in what would be my uterus if I had one. I began to think I had so much more wrong with me.